That's really where my life started to fall apart.
I didn't feel comfortable with who I was or who I had become, and like it was my fault.
To be a very disturbingly common sentiment. If you're a male, you can't be a victim.
I said I don't want to have sex.
Single most terrifying experience I've ever had.
And he just kind of took off his pants and started having sex with me.
As long as you have a physical body, this can be done to you. You can be raped, you can be molested, you can be assaulted by someone.
It is estimated that 1 in 5 women on college campuses has been sexually assaulted during their time there. And we're going to work with colleges and universities and educational institutions of all kinds across America to help them come up with better ways to prevent and respond to sexual assault on their campuses.
For the first time ever, on May 1st, 2014, the United States Office for Civil Rights released a list of 55 colleges and universities that were being investigated for alleged Title IX violations. In a statement released with a document, the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Catherine E. Lehman, said, "We are making this list available in an effort to bring more transparency to our enforcement work and to foster better public awareness of civil rights." Wendy Murphy is an adjunct professor at New England Law Boston who specializes in violence against women and sexual violence legislation.
People will tell you that this is a resources problem. We need more resources. No. What we need is a redesign of priorities. And that's not that difficult to do. We need to redesign rape law at the baseline.
In most states, rape law requires proof of penetration, non-consent, and the use of force in order for a conviction to be made.
That in and of itself is so offensive to women's autonomy and bodily integrity when you think about it, because why should force be necessary? Why isn't it enough that you are violating somebody's bodily integrity without her consent? Why isn't that enough to make it a crime? It really doesn't even matter that we have a rape culture problem on top of that, because we really have enabled rape to occur by making it legal, because it's only not legal if force is used. That's a problem.
And this problem is affecting millions of people in the United States today. Currently, the number of rape victims in the country is greater than the population of these cities combined. That's 165 million victims. Surprisingly, an increasing number of these assaults are happening at colleges and universities. It isn't just the 55 schools that are struggling to combat sexual assaults, though. The U.S. Department of Education reports that the yearly number of forcible sexual assaults on college campuses has nearly doubled in the past decade.
So you want to ask the question, why does rape happen in such large numbers? Why are women disproportionately being attacked sexually in college compared to even the real world? I mean, think about that. The year 2014, you're more likely to be raped in college than if you don't go to college. Is the message that girls should stay home and get pregnant and not become educated?
And how can our campuses create policies that won't send this message to their students? Interviews from one of the 55 schools offer an inside look at this problem. This is Sarah Lawrence College, one of the 55 schools accused of Title IX violations. During the fall of 2013, they reported their highest ever number of sexual assaults. 2 days before the Office of Civil Rights published their list, President Karen Lawrence confirmed that Sarah Lawrence was under investigation and stated that, "When the college receives the results of the OCR's inquiry, I can assure you that we will address any findings thoroughly." Nadia Rahman is a senior at Sarah Lawrence and head of Voices for Planned Parenthood on campus.
To my knowledge, Title IX is basically, it maintains standards of policy for college campuses on sexual violence and sexual violence policy. With recent events, whether or not we adhere to Title IX fully has come into question.
I imagine that they were investigating, perhaps one of the cases that took place last semester.
A student contacted the Department of Education and asked them to come to Sarah Lawrence and investigate Title IX violations. I sat in on one of the conversations, and it was a really productive conversation. It was the first time that I felt like someone was listening to us and actually hearing what we were saying.
I don't think that the results of that will be heard until much later.
If found liable, substantial federal funding could be withheld from Sarah Lawrence College.
It completely has to do with the kind of people who they've let come here and let cause this climate to explode the way it has.
A lot of the issues that were raised were around the seemingly new influx of athletic students at Sarah Lawrence. Athletes have a higher incidence of sexual violence as opposed to the rest of the population, and I think immediate conclusions would lead you to completely focus on athletes or completely focused on specific groups that have historically been stigmatized for hypersexuality or whatever, without really looking at the situation as it is.
But this is not a Division I school. The athletes that we have here are not athletes who have been recruited, in that way and have experienced that life of athletic privilege since they were young people, since they were children. So I think that we're talking about different athletes here. But that difference is not seen by people, in the larger community.
I think our move towards a more athletic campus certainly doesn't help. But I wouldn't go and blame it on that, because we've had this problem for as long as I've been here, long prior to Division III. I wouldn't blame athletes for it.
It's interesting because there's a lot of, I think, intersecting tensions when it came to race, when it came to sexuality, when it came to gender and sexual violence. And I think there are a lot of subgroups that wanted to have their voice heard. And I think actually Sarah Lawrence did a pretty good job as coming together as a united front and addressing the administration and addressing sexual violence policy at Sarah Lawrence.
I'm Paige Crandall, Dean of Student Affairs, and I work with Career Services, Community Partnerships, Residence Life, campus diversity and campus engagement, and student activities. I know there was a silent march, and I attended that. There was another kind of a march protest on a Saturday afternoon. I attended that. I know that there's a lot of conversation about the time when the president and several of us spoke on the lawn and was there afterwards to have students to come. And students have come to me and Dina and others since then to talk about different things, concerns, etc.
Students complain to me about security protocol on campus and what happens when you make a complaint or report an incident, and kind of disorganization around that. People feeling like their complaints hadn't been heard.
I think the administration should be doing something to train them for what to do in this situation. I think that the people at Westland's desk, if they ever get another call that says, hey, I think someone upstairs is being raped, it's this apartment, you should come here, that they shouldn't ignore that call, because that call was ignored. That was last semester. That was one of those cases that we got an email about a day later, but no one came.
I think maybe just having more protocol workshops and making sure that our security knows policy.
They should have been in Hill House in that apartment. They should have knocked down that door, done something, rather than let whoever that poor person was suffer.
The administration contested that they had not been notified by security of the situation. They became aware of it when students discussed it at a forum held by the Title IX investigators. They are now asking for students with information to come forward.
Wellness Subcommittee was charged by the Dean of Studies and the President to take this up last semester and to really investigate what's going on and really to get feedback from the student body.
And feedback came in the form of a 7-page list of demands that was sent to the administration in October of 2013. Its authors threatened to stage a protest on Admitted Students Day if their terms were not addressed. The list includes 30 policies and procedures that were seen as unsatisfactory by the student group and deals with issues of resource availability, information circulation, and how reports are filed. The document was addressed by the SLC Health and Wellness Subcommittee.
So we also included that and essentially said we don't want to try to Cliff Notes this, so we're going to attach this in full and have it be part of our findings. But again, understand that it's separate. It's really not coming from our subcommittee. It's coming from a different group of students. But it felt detailed enough and important that it go with our reports.
Upon review of the document submitted by students, the administration disregarded several demands as unfeasible due to budgetary, legal, or other limitations.
And I guess I'm looking at one of the first ones. Health Services does not provide rape kits, and they wanted Health Services to provide rape kits. And we've had long discussions about whether or not that makes sense, and have had long discussions about the fact that because this is forensic evidence, because we are not safe examiners, we don't have, and we're a college campus health services with limited resources. And I don't mean that as an excuse, it's just the reality that for many reasons, legal reasons, the fact that we're gathering evidence, the fact that it needs to be stored in a certain way, it makes very good sense for that to be done at a hospital.
I think that they need to do something. I think that the small number of safe nurses in this county is really unhelpful. Especially considering that there is a backlog of unprocessed rape kits in every county in the country. Like, I'm certain of it. There is a backlog. Some kits are years old and will never be processed.
80 to 90% of rape cases are defended on the grounds of consent. You could have DNA from 7 guys and 3 goats in a woman's body, and that's not going to tell you whether she consented on the night in question. The reason hundreds of thousands of kits are stacked up all over the country is because 90% of the kits contain irrelevant information about the woman's private body parts.
We would very much like to serve the students as soon as possible in as confidential a way as possible, but we've determined that having rape kits on campus is not one of those ways.
I think people thought that they would see more change from getting out this document to the administration, saying, like, listen, these are all of the things that we've isolated as problems to our safety that you guys should change. And I think the lack of administration response to that effect has been demoralizing.
To Sarah Lawrence's credit and our campus's credit, I do feel like there are a lot of spaces I can go and receive information. And I do feel after these events, I think the administration was really proactive and really willing to listen at the very least.
Since students began to protest sexual assault policy, the administration has taken steps towards improvement.
Before Thanksgiving, we, Health and Wellness, submitted a report to Dean Green. And the report included our compilation of all of the issues and then our action items, immediate, midterm, and long-term. And the immediate action items were things that could be done quickly: increased access to Westchester Victim Assistance, the implementation of online consent and respect training for all incoming students, campus information posters, and then improved shuttle service with security. We have 3 out of the 4 are done, and we're working with campus security around improving the shuttle service. Midterm action items were implementation of response training for mandated reporters in campus security, clarification of Title IX coordinator, sexual assault liaison, and hearing coordinator, implementation of bystander training for fall of 2014, and then a review of the policies and procedures. And then longer term, a fully funded Health and Wellness Subcommittee actually a peer educator program that Health Services is working very hard on right now.
In addition to the alcohol online program, before they can move in, they're going to be doing a consent respect online program that will talk about what consent means, what it looks like, and defines that type of thing. So they'll be mandated to do that. And that was out of, again, student recommendations to say, we need to know more about this and how to do this and how to put, in our relationships. And so
we put in place the Consent and Respect the Can I Kiss You program that we brought to campus in February. These are the posters, and they should be up in most of the public spaces on bathroom doors. We're working on getting them posted in prominent places in all the dorms as well. That will be the beginning of the conversation. And that's something that's really important, hopefully, to hear and keep in mind is we're not thinking about these as sort of one-shot deals that take care of, okay, we'll check the box and consent and respect is taken care of. We're really hoping that it becomes the starting point. So we are in process. We realize that I happen to think we have a pretty good foundation for our policies and procedures and realize that there's also some work to be done.
But there are still concerns that haven't been addressed.
Faculty do not receive training in about sexual assault. We have when we become dons, first year studies professors, because those are two different things. There was a conversation. We learn about the sexual assault policy and who we should go to if one of our donees has been assaulted. But regarding sexual assault in particular, not the kind of more comprehensive training that I would suggest.
First, a survivor will draft a statement, and then their attacker has the chance to read that statement before drafting their own. So they can tailor their statement to what their victim is saying about them. That's intolerable. Like, you can't have a system and expect it to be fair when one person who is the problem can tailor their response to the person who just wants justice. The conversation hasn't died, but it's definitely quieted a lot. I think people thought that they would see more change.
In fact, as early as February, students were starting to lose interest. The Phoenix ran a column titled Silent Sex on SLC Campus, which accused Sarah Lawrence of allowing for the social justice fad in which students become engaged in activism when it suits them.
I think that everyone's a lot more busy, and that it's not as much of a hot button issue because we haven't seen any reports this year. And that's not to say that no one has been assaulted this semester, but it isn't the 8 that it was last semester.
And if I can make a plea for students to join the Health and Wellness Subcommittee, because that's something that we really need. We need more students. We need more students to become part of our working groups. That would be very helpful.
My hope and intention is that every college president who has not personally been thinking about this is going to hear about this report and is going to go out and figure out, are we doing everything that we should be doing? And if you're not doing that right now, I want the students at the school to ask the president what he's doing or she's doing.
Like Sarah Lawrence, many of the other 55 schools have reported recent changes in their policies. All report that they are making every effort to cooperate in the investigations. Some schools maintain that despite the investigations, their policies are already sound. At school number 21, Boston University, a spokesperson stated that, "We believe the university provided the student with a prompt and equitable resolution of the complaint in full accordance with the requirements of Title IX." Furthermore, as was also the case at Sarah Lawrence, student communication is a persistent issue at many of the other schools. School number 4, University of California, Berkeley, has issued a statement that much has been done to strengthen the campus's handling of these issues, but we understand that there is always room for improvement. But a student from the university commented that he had never even heard of a sexual assault issue on campus. This is a clear example of miscommunication between administration and students. Not only do administrations need to provide transparency and open channels for communication, but students need to be willing to work with their administrations and voice their needs.
So I'm hoping that we've reached a stage where young people, with eyes wide open, be willing to take on some of the bigger responsibilities, primary among them, making this a leadership issue.
If students want change in sexual assault policy and culture, they have to push for it with authority and encourage each other to participate in a solution. There is a sexual assault in America once every 2 minutes. That's 10 attacks since you started watching this film.